Christmas. I'm Kim Bailey and welcome to our series on what to do with supermarket flowers so you can have a spectacular display at Christmas time. We're going today to look at some things that you might already have at home. So the cut glass vase that you inherited, this is one that I inherited, and it sits in the cupboard for long periods of time before I decide I will bring it out, but it's very much a festive activity. It's very heavy, so I'm going to put that down while I talk about the other things that we're going to use today. We're going to use some bling. I've got the bling earrings on. We're going to use some bling. So these are baubles, just the standard Christmas baubles that you buy in bulk. I tend to go after Christmas to see when all the sales are on, and I'll buy up for the following year so that I've got lots of different colours to use. And we'll talk a little bit colours in some of the other designs. But today we're going to go with some traditional reds and golds and use them that way. These ones, you'll see how I use them. What I've done is just taken the caps off, the hanging caps that you might have on them, and hot glued some skewers into them, some kebab skewers, bamboo skewers, whatever you call them, just so that it's going to give us a little bit more height in the design. The others, some of the others I've left the caps on and some I've taken off. And the reason I've taken off some of the caps is that these can be used as a water source, and we'll see that in some of the other designs because they're made out of plastic or ping pong balls, sometimes and just coloured. You can actually fill them with water and put your plant material in them to give you a little bit of a different way to display your flowers. But today we're going to go very simple. We're just going to go the bunch of flowers that I got at the supermarket, put them in the vase, and let's have a look at how we can make them sit in the vase comfortably. Obviously, if you get other different shapes, you can use those as well. Just in terms of the hot glue, I will remind you that there's an easy way not to burn your fingers with the hot glue. These are my floral art fingers, and I use them to protect my fingers from hot glue. They're a silicone fingertip, and we have them available at Floral Art online in packs of 5 or in packs of 10. All different sizes come in the pack, and it just means that you don't hesitate about using hot glue because you're worried about burning your fingers. So when I made these, had these on, put the hot glue into just filled that cavity as much as I could, and then pushed the bamboo skewer into there, and then just pressed it in with these. Didn't burn my fingers, peeled off. And the same can be said if you're using the florist glue. They'll protect your fingers from the florist glue as well, which can be a nightmare to try and get off. So they're called Floral Art Fingers, and they're available at the website, and the link will be down in the description below. Okay, let's get started with our vase and have a look at ways that we can use that vase with a bunch of supermarket flowers. So here's our vase again. It's nice and tall. It's got a little bit of sparkle to it, so we've got our Christmas bling happening already. The issue with supermarket flowers is that they're pretty much a standard length. So these are the ones that I'm going to be using, as you can see, straight from the supermarket. And they'll come up quite a nice height, but what we look for when we want to see something that looks good in a design, and I'm not talking about florist design so much as just any design that you see and you think, gee, that looks good, it's because it's balanced visually. So what we would generally look at is that the shape of the vase is mirrored by the way you put the flowers in, that the height of the vase is at least, the height of the flowers is at least the same as the height of the vase, so that one is not overshadowing the other. So that if we just put them in like that, it's okay, but if we brought them up just that much higher, it makes such a difference to the design. So how are we going to do that when you can see through the design? A couple of very simple ways. Firstly, you can fill the bottom of the vase with the coloured gel balls that you can get, that'll give it a little bit more sparkle. You can use crushed up wire, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. You could use some baubles in the bottom. So we're going to do a combination of the baubles in there, as well as the wire, and that will hold it in place. One of the other things that you can do, which I will probably do after we fill the vase itself, is to make a grid across the top of the vase. So if we looked at the top of the vase and we just use sticky tape, which I've got here, good old sticky tape, and we make a grid across the top of the vase, that will give us, I'll just put a couple of spots in now so that I can still fill afterwards. But what it does is gives us an invisible grid, and we can put our flowers in between, and that will hold them in the places that we want to hold them in. But that's not going to work for the depth of this vase, because we want to lift the flowers a little bit higher. It will work in combination with something else. So let's first of all fill the bottom, and then we'll work on the grid, and then we'll put the flowers in, and you'll see at the end how it all looks. So this is what is generally termed decorative wire. It comes in a range of colours. It's very soft, very pliable. You could use any kind of wire, so long as it fits your colour scheme that you're going to use. Remember that it's going to be sitting in water. So this is a coated anodised aluminium wire, and these are all just offcuts of other things that I've done. So all I've done is you just scrunch it up. Very technical term, scrunch it up, so that it's going to, what it does is forms a bit of a lattice inside the vase, so that we can, that the placements that we put in will be held in place. But first of all, let's do the baubles in here. And we're going to use some small ones. It's still got a tag on it. Some small ones right in the bottom. And you can see already what a difference that makes. Now, given that we're going to put water in there, you might like to weight those down a little bit with some sand or something in them, just to keep them in the bottom. But because we're going to have so much other material on top, that's not going to be an issue in this particular design. What we might do is put some wire in against the first of those baubles. Doesn't matter how it goes in, because as I said, it's very malleable, so it'll just move around. You can adjust it so that it works for you. And then we'll put these ones in. Now at this stage I don't need this grid, so I'm just going to take off that tape. But I will, if you'd like to see how the tape grid works, there is another video that I did for people who are starting out with working with flowers, and have a look at that video. I'll put the link down in the description as well, so you can have a look at that and see how that works. Alright, now we're at the stage where we can put some water in, and then we'll put some of the plant material in, then we'll add some of the other features, so that what we want to do is bring the baubles all the way up into the design. So that's why these are on sticks, because once we've got some other plant material in there, we can wedge them in between the wire, so that they will actually sit in places for us to highlight in the design, and that way that feature carries right through the design. And that's a little tip that makes your designs look a little bit more professional than just something that you've whipped up straight from the supermarket. So let's have a look. Well, first of all, we'll put some water in. You can see how those bottom ones are wanting to float, but they won't get much further than the lip of the vase anyway. Push them back down, push that wire back down, and it will hold the other bauble down in the place that you want it. Remember when you're putting the water in, that it's the line of the water is obvious from the outside. So bring it up as high as you can to keep it less distracting for people who are looking at it. Now we're going to start putting some plant material in. And the first thing you want to do is strip off any of the foliage that is looking a bit tired, but particularly you need to strip off any foliage that is going to be below the water line, because that is what will encourage the bacteria to grow and to flourish, and that's what turns your water brown or cloudy. That's what makes them smell. So make sure these are all got little brown tips on the foliage, so I'm going to take it all off. Some of the petals are coming away. I did get them a couple of days ago. And these are obviously chrysanthemums. Now, I determined that I would do this today for you without using my knife, because I thought everyone will have scissors, and so that will be easier. But in terms of trimming, just making sure that that's clean, I would normally just run the knife down there just to make sure, so I'll just use the scissors today. Now, the other thing you should always do when you're, regardless of whether you're going to put your own stamp on a design, on an arrangement, or whether you just want the flowers and you've got a vase that's perfect and you're just going to put them straight into the vase, always recut the stems. Because they've been sitting in water somewhere else and then you've transported them, the bottom of the stem has done its job in terms of feeding the rest of the plant whilst it's been there. If you cut again on an angle, just a little bit, gives it a fresh start, and so it can go straight in. And so what we want to do is just make sure that we get a little bit through some of those wires so that it holds it in place. Same with each of them. Now these are obviously multi-flower on the one stem, which is great. And the leaves on this one are much better. So we won't have to trim too many of those. Cut on an angle so it's got more surface area for the water to go up through the plant, through the stem, I should say. Now the other thing we don't want to do is have everything at the same height or the same angle. You'll lose being able to see me shortly. We've got three that are at similar heights and angles. What I want to do is bring some down into this lower area here. Only one stem left, so let's see what we can do with that. Now obviously, if you've got foliage and greenery in the garden, you could add some things to it. If you've got smaller flowers, we talk about having transitional flowers. That means that simply means that our eyes need to move from the larger focal areas to something a little bit smaller and down into the detail of what we're looking at. So that's what transitional material means. So that might be something like smaller daisies or other, I'm going to cut this one quite short, little flowers that feature. So what we've got now, turn around so you can see, is just a few flowers, interesting enough, and what we want to do is add a little bit more bling to it so that it's a nice welcoming design for when people come into your home. So that's what these ones are for. Once again, we don't want to have them all at the same height. You'll see that what I'm finding is that the bigger bauble down there is actually holding those stems from going all the way down. So if you had smaller ones, it would work better, obviously. And then I think all you need to do is just fill in those gaps. What I have done is I have picked some, I've got some succulents from the garden. The beauty of this style of arrangement is that you can rearrange it as much as you like. So I will just add those in now. I was going to try and use this so you could have it hanging down at the front, just put a little bit of thread or something on it and tie it to one of the stems if you wanted to, and have it hanging down so that it brings, once again, brings the design back down into the vase and incorporates the vase without the vase standing out too much. So we might do that in the finished product. So I'll just grab some succulents, some greenery to put in with this. Here I am, back from the garden. Now these are succulents, they don't necessarily need water, but if you leave them in the water for too long, they'll start to show their little bit of rooting, so that might be a challenge for you, it might be a good thing for you. We always like to repeat the plant material a little bit, so that's another thing that our eyes like to see, a little bit of repetition. What this also does is provide a little bit of a collar around the top of the vase to enhance your design, your arrangement, I should say. So what I'm thinking is that these ones are still coming up too high. So I'm going to have to cut them down a little bit because they're taking your eye out of the vase, away from the vase. So we'll cut them down just a little bit more. So I'm going to have a play, and I'll see you when I've finished playing, and you can have a look at the finished item. So there we have our 4 stems of supermarket flowers. into an heirloom or inherited vase that we mightn't use for anything else, this type of design, because we've used the inside and the water to enhance the blingy feel of the design, means that you use less flowers, obviously. A few little things from the garden just to repeat the green flavour. As you can see, I've put the baubles hanging down to make sure that you see that there's baubles in the glass as well as outside of the glass. We've got the pointed bauble in the centre just to give a little bit more feel of looking up into the design. But you can see that this is a design you could have at the entrance, against a wall, against a mirror, so that it reflects and so you see into the design as well. There's interest in the design, so it makes it worthwhile. You could have it in the centre of the table, you could have it near the tree, whatever. But it works all the way around, so it doesn't matter which direction you're looking at it. But it is an easy, quick design, one that you can adjust. And as you would imagine, if you've got flowers that don't last for too long, that you can take these ones out. I would personally take everything out, give the vase a rinse, and then throw the stuff back in and start again. But it is easy for you to replace and readjust the design. And it's the sort of design, if you just use the wire and you had the whole thing filled with that coloured wire, you could have it for any occasion. It wouldn't have to be the baubles, it wouldn't have to be a particularly traditional Christmas arrangement, if you like. You could just use foliage in it, you could just use leaves. If you've got a wonderful garden that's got fabulous leaves in it, you could just do that. But that's basically using 4 stems to create something that is a little bit different, straight from the supermarket. So there we have it, our first design for this year for Christmas flowers from the supermarket. I'm Kim Bailey from Floral Art Online.